Welcome to our podcast, where we cover unique and interesting stories for you. In this episode, we will discuss a mega tsunami triggered by a falling mountain that created a 9-day-long earthquake. Something incredible happened in Greenland in 2023, when a mountaintop collapsed into the sea, triggering a mega tsunami about 200 meters tall. The giant wave was so strong that it rocked inside the narrow Dixon Fjord for 9 days. The event generated seismic waves that cut through the Earth's crust and also lasted for a whopping 9 straight days. When scientists recorded a mysterious seismic signal in 2023, they were unsure of what was happening. Instead of the frequency-rich rumble typical of earthquakes, they noticed only a monotonous hum, with only a single vibration frequency. An international team of scientists decided to solve the mystery. They traced the origin of the seismic signal back to the tsunami waves in Greenland. The study has been published in the journal Science. When we set out on this scientific adventure, everybody was puzzled, and no one had the faintest idea what caused this signal, said Christian Svenevig, a geologist at the Geological Survey of Denmark and Greenland, and the study's lead author. All we knew was that it was somehow associated with the landslide. We only managed to solve this enigma through a huge interdisciplinary and international effort. Rock and ice that could fill 10,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools had plunged into the fjord. A 200-meter-high mega-tsunami was triggered, along with a phenomenon known as a seiche. Seiche is when a wave continues to slosh around in an icy fjord back and forth. This one rocked some 10,000 times over 9 days. It was 200 meters tall, the tallest wave recorded anywhere on Earth since 1980. It was many times higher than the tsunami waves triggered by an undersea earthquake in Indonesia in 2004, and in Japan in 2011, the authors wrote in the paper. Stephen Hicks, Research Fellow in Computational Seismology, UCL, and Christian Svenevig, Senior Researcher, Department of Mapping and Mineral Resources, Geological Survey of Denmark and Greenland, informed that 66 other scientists from 40 institutions across 15 countries worked together to find the source of the mysterious signal: climate change. Study authors say that global heating had thinned the glacier by several tens of meters, meaning that the mountain towering above it could no longer be held up. They wrote, "The landslide traveled down a very steep glacier in a narrow gully, before plunging into a narrow, confined fjord." Scientists say that this is not the last time something like this has happened. As permafrost on steep slopes continues to warm, and glaciers continue to thin, we can expect these events to happen more often and on an even bigger scale across the world's polar and mountainous regions. That's all from this podcast.
We begin with breaking news: an arrest in an overnight arson targeting a U.S. Postal Service blue box that went up in flames, torching more than a dozen ballots. And just into our newsroom in the last half hour, an arrest in that arson and vandalism of an official mail collection box in Phoenix. Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego posting on social media, confirming an arrest, thanking the swift action of Phoenix police and fire and federal partners. We're told the suspect is en route to booking right now. It was one of the drive-up blue boxes outside the USPS at 7th Avenue and Indian School in Phoenix. We're told 20 early ballots were inside that box, damaged along with some other mail. The Phoenix Arson Task Force started working with this right away with U.S. postal inspectors. It is a federal felony to tamper with the mail. USPS encouraging everyone not to put any mail in any blue box collection box after the last pickup time. That's posted on every box. So a heads up, if you dropped off any mail to that drop box, again, the location at 7th Avenue and Indian School after 5 last night, you can file a report and they will contact you. Inspectors are working with election officials as we speak to contact those voters whose ballots may have been compromised. We have a crew working to learn more about this arrest, and we'll have a full update on Good Evening Arizona starting at 4.
On Wednesday, residents of the Peruvian capital rushed to board one of the few buses in operation. Lima has been paralyzed by a third major transport strike in less than a month. But this time, shops are also closed as merchants joined the thousands of people protesting the government's inability to stop rampant organized crime.
We are asking the government to bring all extortionists to justice. How is it possible that for 5 sols they are taking lives of shopkeepers, entrepreneurs who work every day, who suffer and struggle to put bread on their table for their children?
In many parts of the country, gang members extort money from businesses and citizens, responding with violence if they are not paid. In September, the government declared a state of emergency in 14 districts around Lima and deployed the army to help fight crime. Nonetheless, violence has not abated. A week ago, a teacher was killed by a man in front of his students. 2 weeks ago, a driver and 3 passengers were shot dead in a minibus. Trujillo, the country's third largest city, has been plagued by armed gangs. This teacher received threats. Either he pay $2,500 or else.
We didn't pay anything, so they placed an explosive in front of the school. We had to suspend classes for a week.
Police say more than 14,000 reports of extortion have been recorded across the country since January. The Peruvian government has linked the rise in violent crime to Venezuela's migration crisis and the arrival of powerful transnational gangs. On Tuesday, Peruvian President Dina Boluarte announced that the government will begin monitoring remittances sent to Venezuela in order to find immigrants who are obtaining money illegally.
And now we head south to Mexico, where the Mexican army has killed at least 19 suspected members of the deadly Sinaloa cartel. In an overnight ambush on Monday, the army has given the Sinaloa cartel one of its biggest defeats in recent months. President Claudia Sheinbaum promises to crack down on cartels even further. However, ordinary Mexicans are not completely on board. Will the Mexican army use the recent success to launch an all-out assault, or will the cartels rain down more terror? Here's more from the streets of Mexico.
In the late hours on Monday, the quiet suburban streets near the capital in Mexico's Sinaloa state were rocked by the crackle of gunfire. A major shootout took place between the Mexican army and one of the most deadly drug gangs in the world, the Sinaloa cartel. The shootout took place about 11 kilometers outside the Sinaloa state capital, Culiacan. According to the Mexican Defense Ministry, the gunfire took place after more than 30 cartel gunmen fired on Mexican soldiers. As the Mexican army retaliated, they managed to shoot and kill at least 19 cartel members. The Mexican army also seized 30 firearms and military-style vests and helmets from the scene of the shootout. One cartel member was unable to flee and was arrested by the Mexican military. He has been identified as Edwin Antonio, a local leader of the Sinaloa cartel. The latest blow to the Sinaloa cartel faction comes amid unprecedented flare-ups of cartel violence in recent months. Between October 6 and October 15, Mexico saw the brutal killings of 2 mayors. The killings didn't stop there. An indigenous priest was also killed right after officiating Mass on Sunday. These killings have sparked widespread outrage against the newly elected president, Claudia Sheinbaum, who had vowed to crack down on cartel violence.
We have called on the government to clarify this case and bring justice to Father Marcelo, a great priest that always advocated for the poorest and for the people in need, that always listened and helped and now has been murdered. We demand all the government agencies to cooperate and give answers to clarify all these.
Before that, I would like to express that we regret the murder, the assassination of Father Marcelo Perez Perez in San Cristobal de las Casas. The investigation is being carried out. Yesterday, the Secretary of the Interior was communicating with both the state government and the diocese and with the ecclesiastical authorities. We are coordinating to be able to advance in the investigation, and that this crime does not go unpunished.
Earlier in October, President Sheinbaum rolled out a 4-pronged approach to tackle cartel violence. But only a few of them appear to be changing the reality on ground. President Sheinbaum has emphasized on justice as a measure for peace and security in the violence-infested country.
We will reduce the number of high-impact crimes. We will because we have a strategy and will implement it. We will pay more attention than what was given by the government of President López Obrador to certain topics, and we still believe that security and peace are the result of justice.
It is like this in Chilpancingo and throughout the state. The situation is truly critical. Perhaps the rest of the country doesn't know it. I invite Mexican Minister of Security Omar Hamid Garcia Harfuch and President of Mexico Claudia Sheinbaum to come here, and not just from behind a desk, to uncover the truth.
According to official data, gang violence in just the Sinaloa state has left around 200 people dead since early September. More than 300 others are believed to be missing. The spiraling violence is linked to drug trafficking and cartel rivalry. President Sheinbaum's new security strategy continues to face scrutiny. The recent success by the Mexican army is a rare and welcome sight. Ordinary Mexicans still fear for their lives and continue to suffer from cartel violence. Only time will tell whether the Mexican army will use its recent success to launch a larger military campaign against the cartels.
We're going to begin with the Iran nuclear deal. Candidate Trump promised to pull out of it. Today, President Trump did, with widespread implications. The president, who calls the deal defective at its core, is reimposing economic sanctions on Iran. In response, Iran's president threatened to start enriching uranium again. And Britain, France, and Germany, all signatories to the deal, say they will try to salvage it. We have reports tonight from Washington and Tehran. First, Weijia Jiang is at the White House.
The United States no longer makes empty threats. When I make promises, I keep them.
President Trump took the most aggressive path out of the deal, announcing the U.S. will reinstate the highest level of economic sanction on Iran.
The Iran deal is defective at its core. If we do nothing, we know exactly what will happen. In just a short period of time, the world's leading state sponsor of terror will be on the cusp of acquiring the world's most dangerous weapons.
The president declared he had definitive proof that Iran had violated the 2015 agreement aimed at freezing the country's nuclear ambitions, but produced no evidence. These were the president's top military advisors last fall.
Iran is not in material breach of the agreement.
Do you believe it's in our national security interest at the present time to remain in the JCPOA?
Yes, Senator, I do.
Iranian President Hassan Rouhani insisted today it is the U.S., not Iran, that has broken the agreement, but said he may soon restart his country's nuclear program. France, Germany, and the U.K., also parties to the deal, issued a joint statement that expressed regret and concern over the U.S. exit.
Because this deal is the all-time worst.
Mr. Trump is celebrating it as a campaign promise fulfilled. By pulling out of the agreement, the president reverses one of the Obama administration's signature foreign policy legacies. Today, the former president called withdrawal a serious mistake. President Trump said he was open to renegotiations, but Iran is unlikely to come to the table. Senior global affairs contributor Ian Bremmer.
All of America's major allies, all of the Europeans strongly opposed America pulling out of this deal because they don't believe there is a plan B. They don't know how they could possibly get a better deal with the Iranians.
All right, Weijia is at the White House now. And Weijia, what is next now when it comes to reimposing these sanctions?
Well, the Trump administration says they go into effect immediately when it comes to new business with Iran, but it is allowing those foreign entities with existing deals periods of 90 or 180 days to wind down and get out of them. Jeff?
Timetable is a big part of it. Weijia Jiang, thank you.
Through the roof because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And if you look at now, Israel, October 7th, that would have never happened. But if Bibi Netanyahu followed the plan of Biden, he didn't want him to do anything. And a bad thing happened today. You probably heard. Now, the press isn't covering it very much, which is just incredible. Possibly our Defense Department or somebody. Anyway, it was leaked. The entire military plan of Israel. The military plan. The plans they have at the highest level, it was leaked. Highly confidential information. It was leaked by our somebody. They have no idea who did it. Can you imagine you're fighting a war and you have your Americans, Carlos, can you imagine anything like that? Did you hear this? You know, they leaked all the information about the way that Israel's going to fight and how they're going to fight and where they're going to go. And somebody, who did that? Can you imagine somebody doing that? That's the enemy. I guess that maybe is the enemy from within, as I talk about. We have an enemy from within. They hate to talk about it. But could you imagine? Could you imagine? So we just can't stand for this incompetence anymore. We are an incompetence.
नए स्वरूप में ब्रिक्स $30 ट्रिलियन से भी ज्यादा बड़ी इकोनॉमी है। हमारे क्लाइमेट चेंज हमारी साझी प्राथमिकता का विषय रहा है। रूस की अध्यक्षता में ब्रिक्स ओपन कार्बन मार्केट पार्टनरशिप के लिए बनी सहमति का स्वागत करता है। भारत में भी ग्रीन ग्रोथ, क्लाइमेट रेजिलिएंट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और ग्रीन ट्रांजिशन पर विशेष रूप से बल दिया जा रहा है। भारत ब्रिक्स के अंतर्गत सहयोग बढ़ाने के लिए पूरी तरह से प्रतिबद्ध है। हमारी विविधता और मल्टीपोलैरिटी में हमारा दृढ़ विश्वास हमारी ताकत है। हमारी यही ताकत और मानवता में साझा विश्वास हमारी भावी पीढ़ी के समृद्ध और सशक्त भविष्य को सार्थक रूप देने में सहयोग होगा।
Iran says Saudi Arabia will take part in joint military exercises in the Red Sea, a historic first for the former regional rivals who only just mended their diplomatic relations last year. Admiral Shahram Irani, the commander of the Islamic Republic's Navy, said Saudi Arabia had asked Tehran to organize the military exercises in the adjacent Red Sea. Bruce Riedel, a senior fellow at the Center for Middle East Policy at Brookings, told the Post the drills could be a ploy by Tehran to help protect itself from Israel's looming counterattack on Iran. Riedel said Israel wouldn't risk firing over Jordan, which serves as a mediator over the region. The attack could be launched through Saudi airspace, and that's what Iran is likely trying to convince Saudi Arabia to prohibit. While Riedel said that a military drill could provide the Saudi government a chance to push for peace in the region, he said the exercise may prove to be nothing more than a small gesture for the former rivals. Riedel said the West should only be worried if the drills were to escalate to the point where Iran is sending troops to Saudi Arabia, or if the kingdom shares advanced weapons with Tehran. Irani did not provide further details on when the drills would take place, with Tehran allegedly conducting joint naval exercises with Russia and Oman since the weekend. Saudi Arabia has yet to confirm if it will take part in the latest military drills. Saudi Arabia has long stood as a rival superpower to Iran in the Middle East, often backing opponents to Iran's proxies in the region. The two had severed diplomatic ties in 2016, but the rivals resumed relations following a surprise Chinese-brokered deal in 2023. While Saudi Arabia has called for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war, the nation has kept its distance from the conflict, notably declining to join the U.S.-European naval coalition protecting merchant ships from the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. The Yemen-based terror group has repeatedly attacked military and commercial ships along one of the world's most important trade routes in a show of solidarity with Hamas following Israel's ground incursion in Gaza. Saudi Arabia's refusal to intervene in the Houthi attacks came as a surprise given that the kingdom has spent years backing the Aden government's fight against the Iran-backed terror group. The Houthis' attack in the Red Sea also put a halt to Saudi Arabia's attempt to broker peace in Yemen. Reports of the alleged Iran-Saudi Arabian naval drills comes as Tehran conducts joint military drills with Russia and Oman, which began on Saturday in the Indian Ocean, according to Iran's state media. The drills, dubbed IMEX 2024, are aimed at boosting collective security in the region, expand multilateral operation, and display the goodwill and capabilities to safeguard peace, friendship, and maritime security, according to Press TV. As of March, Iran has held a total of 5 joint drills with Russia and China in the Gulf of Oman, with Saudi Arabia among the 6 nations invited to watch the exercises.
They keep saying that Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to hit Iran. Maybe not necessarily the nuclear facilities, maybe the oil facilities or elsewhere. would you support that if you were a president?
Well, I think he's going to do what he wants to do, and I think he has to do that. You know, Biden was giving him some very bad. Look, Biden has been historically horrible on foreign policy, incompetent, I would say. What you do is anything he says, do the opposite, and you'll be brilliant if you do the opposite. But he gave him instructions not to do anything, and Israel was under great danger. They're under much less danger right now than they were 1 month ago. Let's face it.